We've got Rangers, we've got Flames, and we've got a very special crossover edition between Locked On New York Rangers and Locked On Calgary Flames right now on Locked On.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back, Ranger fans, Flame fans, general hockey fans. This is Jon Chik with Locked On New York Rangers, joined by my good friend Jess Belmosto of Locked On Calgary Flames for a special preview crossover episode here. And Jess, looking at the Ranger 5-game road trip that is currently in swing right now, the one game that really stood out for me was this matchup against the Flames, largely due to what we saw last season, just a crazy couple of games. I mean, big hits, fighting, overtime winners. It pretty much had it all. Just your take on what's kind of become an out-of-nowhere rivalry here between the Rangers and Flames.
I was honestly very shocked when Chris Tanev decided to drop gloves with Jacob Trouba, mainly because that was his second career fight, I believe. So, I mean, it's fun to see the physicality and, really the Rangers, I think, are more competitive than the Flames at the moment. But, two teams that they're hungry to win. And it's fun. It makes, those late nights on the East Coast, watching that, it makes it more entertaining and less of a, I can't believe I'm up until 11 o'clock watching hockey.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. These West Coast trips can be a little bit of a grind. And of course, with Calgary, I mean, you're used to, pretty much staying up late for all their games at this point. But it's definitely a challenge. But to your point, Rangers and Flames, the temperature definitely rose last season. I mean, do you think we'll see something similar this year in terms of do we end up getting a fight in this game? We'll do some predictions at the end of this show. But the one I got to get to now is, any fisticuffs, any physicality? What are we expecting here from this game?
I think that the Flames are very frustrated with themselves and their performance. They just came back from a 5-game road trip as well. So I wouldn't be surprised, if they start making mistakes. I would say that Kadri is probably the first one that's going to let his temper flare just based on what we've seen so far this season. So I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question for you is Nazem Kadri, off to a little bit of a slow start this season, just the 1 assist, I believe it is, in 6 games. And I think he's like a -8 or something like that. I don't live and die by plus minus, but -8 this early is kind of extreme. So, I mean, is there cause for concern here, or is this just a good player that's just going through a little bit of a slump right now?
It's the lack of chemistry. I don't even want to call it that. Him and Huberdeau do not play well on the same line together. And we saw a lot of that last year. And we saw enough of it to know that we don't need to see any more. But Ryan Huska is trying to get that to work. And unfortunately, it's just not working. So I think that this is just a matter of him just finally getting that goal. And it'll just be the monkey off his back. And he had a few good shots against Detroit where I was like, this is it. So hopefully tonight will be something for him.
It's funny when that happens, when you've got, somebody going through a little bit of a scoring drought and his teammates and even us as fans, you almost try to just will the puck into the net for him. And, it's sometimes it works. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. I mean, he's too good of a player to be held down forever. But I guess just kind of going through it right now. But
is there anyone on the Rangers that's kind of in a similar boat?
No, but I would say Mika Zibanejad, he's played well, but he doesn't have a goal yet, which is pretty surprising. Especially when you know what an important part he is to the power play for the Rangers. And I mean, they look to just feed him one-timers left and right. You would have thought by now he would have connected on one of those. But I don't think he's played poorly. He's got 4 or 5 assists at this point. Plays well defensively, big part of the penalty kill. So it'll come. And the good news is, the Rangers have played well even without him finding that scoring touch early. So hopefully, maybe this is the night against the Flames here for Mika Zibanejad.
Yeah. And, it's still so early in the season. There have been 10 games. I think people can kind of take a deep breath and not go into panic mode yet. It's not it's still October.
Yeah, it's very easy to have kind of like a knee-jerk reaction to certain things that are happening or certain things that aren't happening this early in the season. But to your point, yeah, I mean, it's still very early. And, obviously a lot of teams kind of trying to figure out who they are and find their identity. Obviously, there's free agents with new teams and guys that were traded with new teams, and it takes a little while to develop that chemistry. But, speaking of that, I wanted to ask you about this. In a way, it's kind of old news, but obviously, big-time wholesale changes for the Flames last offseason. Johnny Gaudreau leaves in free agency. It was one of those things that felt like it could go either way, him staying or going. Ends up going to Columbus, of all places. And then, of course, the big Matthew Tkachuk trade for Huberdeau and Weegar. Do you feel like, this team has kind of gotten settled since all those things happened? Because, I mean, that's a crazy amount of things to be happening in the span of like 10 days for your team last offseason. Yeah.
Yeah, last July was, I think, the busiest July I've ever had in all of my life, just because of all the news. And I think that, a lot of people were prepared for Johnny to stay because that's, like you said, it kind of sounded like it was going to go either way. But I don't know if they've settled in. I think a lot of the commotion from last year really set them back in any way of really creating a true locker room vibe, because you did have guys that were standing by Sutter in every way, and some guys that like Michael Backlund going toe to toe with him in the locker room. So I think it is just a matter of time. And I know we're going to talk about Ryan Huska here in a little bit, but I do think that his philosophy is a lot different, and the more we see of him, the more they'll settle in.
That makes sense. And I just also want to like kind of, if possible, get a feel for, how the fan base is doing with all this, because, obviously, you have a voice and, you're on here Locked On Flames every day, but what do you get the sense as far as like the other Flames fans, like, are they taking to guys like Huberdeau and Weegar, or are they kind of like, dude, I wish we had like Gaudreau and Tkachuk here? Like what's that been like for the fans?
I feel like it's a healthy split. I think that there are some fans who, like they still enjoy the games. They'll go to the Dome and whatever, but they just want to rebuild. They know that Tkachuk and Gaudreau are gone, and there's no reason to pretend like you're still a Stanley Cup contender or really a true playoff team. So I think a lot of people are either like fully just completely negative, like there's no good players on this team, to we just need a little bit more time. So it's a little bit of everything, really.
Makes sense. I mean, it's hard to get hockey fans, I think, to get 100% of them to agree on just about anything. So
yeah, absolutely.
That definitely makes sense. So I figure in just a second, Jess, we can turn our attention to both of our teams. Obviously have new head coaches and just underway in, a new era for both of our teams here. First, though, we definitely want to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers and Locked On Calgary Flames is brought to you by Gametime. Let's see. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without the hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And today's episode of Locked On Rangers and Locked On Flames is also brought to you by Sleeper. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Artemi Panarin could score 50 goals. Nazem Kadri could score 50 goals if he picks it up a little bit there for the Flames. The Rangers or Flames could hoist the Stanley Cup, and you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Panarin or McDavid or Ovechkin or McKinnon will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you will get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleepers, terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, and so Jess and I would just like to thank everybody for making Locked On Rangers and Locked On Flames your first listen every day. Both shows are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And so Jess, to keep things rolling here, obviously both of our teams have new bench bosses, Peter Laviolette for the Rangers, Ryan Huska for the Flames. So to kind of just go back to the start of this process, I know, Huska's been with the Flames organization for a while.
Mhm.
Did you feel like he was kind of the front runner? Like, was he high on your list of people that maybe you wanted to take over the Flames? Just kind of give us a feel for that if you could.
Yeah, I think for me, it was truly a toss-up between the Wranglers coach, Mitch Love, who ended up leaving to go to Washington for an assistant coaching position, or Ryan Huska. And I truly was fine with either one. I think both of them provide such great insight and intelligence and knowledge of the game and the organization as a whole as well to come in and do a good job. And I think so far Ryan Huska has done a good job. He's articulate and he's telling the fans and the media, what they're working on. And I think it's such a great way to kind of gauge like what we can focus on during the game in case you don't just want to watch men on blades skating back and forth.
This sounds like the exact opposite of Daryl Sutter. Now, obviously, look, I can't argue with the man's track record.
Right.
2 Stanley Cups in LA, great coach. But I think, kind of as an outsider looking in, it felt like probably it was time for the curtain to fall as far as, the Daryl Sutter show in Calgary. Is that accurate? And did you and other Flames fans feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the start of the season, it started tough. No, you're losing 2 high-end players, you're adjusting, and you're never getting your footing. But the coach was, it was easy to make excuses at first. And then you could tell that, he was just too stubborn. And Brad Treliving actually tried to fire him during the season. And the Flames owners were like, no, that's my friend. We're not firing him. And, well, here we are at the end of October with a new coach. So,
yeah, maybe that bought him a little bit longer of a shelf life, but it couldn't save him forever. I think maybe is what happened there. But
absolutely.
Yeah. And it's funny hearing you say that because with Gerard Gallant, it was kind of the same thing. I mean, it was only 2 years with the Rangers, and that first season, that's honestly one of the most fun seasons I've had being a fan of any team in any sport. Everybody thinks the Rangers are still rebuilding and they're not going to be a playoff team, and he gets them within 2 wins of going to the finals. Just a tremendous run there. But yeah, I mean, it felt like kind of like Sutter. Maybe at times Gallant's stubbornness kind of got in his way because people would want to see the kids get a bigger role and be in the top 6. And he'd try it for a little while, but it wouldn't last for more than a couple of games. And I don't know. It feels like with Laviolette right now that he's had success with young players in the past, and it feels like he's going to give them maybe a little bit more rope than Gallant wanted to. But I'll always be appreciative of what Gallant did here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that playoff run for the Rangers 2 years ago, that was so fun to watch. It wasn't supposed to happen, and it did, and it was very hard to root against them. And I'm interested to see what comes next, because one of the more puzzling things for me, I think, was them signing Jonathan Quick over the summer. What was the reason? Is there any purpose to this?
Well, a couple of different things. For starters, I think Quick, at this point in his career, 37 years old, I think he understands the fact that, okay, at this point, like, I'm not a franchise goalie anymore. Obviously, the dude's a legend, 3 Stanley Cups. And, for the first 2 of those, he was basically the guy driving the bus there. So just an amazing goalie, amazing talent, slam dunk Hall of Famer. But he wants to continue his career. He's actually from Connecticut, and he grew up a Ranger fan. So I get the feeling it's one of those things where maybe just everything coming full circle here. I assume he still has family and friends in the area. And, hey, he's got a shot. He's got another shot for, another Stanley Cup. And for the Rangers, from their point of view, they've got cap space issues like 90% of the teams in this league do right now. So that being the case, backup goalie is just not an area where you can afford to spend big. And they got him for, I think, like $800K, $825K, somewhere in that ballpark. So for me, it works. Obviously, he's not in his prime anymore, but he actually played very, very well in this Ranger most recent win in Seattle. They won that game 4-1, and Rangers defend very well in front of him, but he made some nice saves too. So that was good to see. And Jess, I actually had a chance to catch your most recent episode a little bit earlier today. And from what I understand, the Flames backup goalie, obviously not Markstrom, his name escapes me.
Dan Vladar.
That's it. So obviously, bit of a shaky performance from him. I got to think we're seeing Markstrom versus Igor for this game coming up here. Are we not?
I believe so. The Flames were practicing earlier today, and it did look like Markstrom would be getting the start tomorrow, or today, I guess, technically. And thank goodness. That 6-2 loss against Detroit was, degrading. It was not fun. He had no confidence, and that's not something you want to see in any of your players, but especially your goaltender.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's listening to that episode, it sounds like it's one of those nights where nothing goes right, but it'll be interesting to see how they respond. I feel like there's kind of like a cycle right now where the Rangers played a game against the Predators, and they did not play well at all. They lost 4-1, easily their worst game of the season. But that was kind of the Predators' bounce back game because they had just been embarrassed by Edmonton, and now the Rangers, their most recent game in Seattle, they're looking to bounce back from a really bad performance against Nashville, and they do. And now, like, the Flames are trying to bounce back from a bad performance against Detroit. It's just kind of a weird cycle that's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like everyone's just kind of trying to build off of each other and benefiting or taking shots if you're struggling. But I think the Flames will just get all of this out of their system early, and they'll be fine. I don't think it's anything like last season.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. It's gonna be curious. I'm gonna be curious to see how they wrap up this year because it's a team that for a while had all this buzz and all this hype, and after last year missing the playoffs, I mean they could surprise some teams this season, and those can be getting back to that Ranger season we were just talking about. Those could be the most fun seasons when your team isn't expected to do much and they really beat expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like that underdog mentality and actually being an underdog and not this like we're a force to be reckoned with like super team like Vegas. It does a lot for your team and your locker room, but also everyone that's rooting for you. It's very difficult, at least for me, to root against an underdog.
I hear you. That definitely makes sense. I'm kind of the same way in a lot of different sports, but Jess, we'll keep everything rolling just a second. I figure we'll get into some predictions, talk about some players to watch in this matchup. But first, would you like to let everyone know about our sponsor, FanDuel?
Yes, snap into this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That is $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. You can get paid out instantly, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, and so we'll go ahead and just keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers and Locked On Flames. And just a big matchup for me in this game is the Ranger power play against the Flames penalty kill. Obviously, it's early in the season, but Rangers have kind of, at times over these past couple of seasons, had a little bit of an over-reliance on the power play. 5v5 has been quite a bit better this season for them. But then the Flames, 95.5 success rate on the penalty kill. And that's unsustainable for a whole season, but it still is very impressive. What are you seeing from the Flames PK? Who's kind of brought it on the penalty kill unit for your team there?
Yeah, I think the penalty kill the last 2 or 3 seasons, I would say, has been just phenomenal. It has been, I believe, at least top 5 in the league, at least through 2 of those. But Chris Tanev is one of the best penalty killers, along with Michael Backlund. Both of them have just played so well defensively. I mean, obviously, Chris Tanev, that's your job, but Backlund is a phenomenal two-way player, and him on the penalty kill, it takes a lot of weight off of the other guys.
Yeah, for sure. And the Ranger power play, it's kind of been interesting to see how, they've kind of settled on their 2 different units. They kind of go with what I call the big 5, and that's Trocheck, Mika, Panarin, Kreider, and Fox. And, they experimented a little bit in the preseason games and obviously in training camp as well, but they end up still going with that same quintet. And it's one of those things, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
Those players just complement each other so well, and it really is a dangerous unit. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup. It's one of those things, special teams are always so big, and that could potentially determine the outcome here in this game. Also, this is one of my favorite questions to ask whenever we do these crossover episodes. Give me like an under the radar player or two to watch, like somebody that's like not really a household name. Maybe Ranger fans aren't really familiar with him, but somebody that's kind of impressed you in the early goings here.
I would say Walker Duehr. He has played a majority of his time on the 4th line, and he spent some time with the club last season as well. But he's a 4th line grinder, a guy just kind of making his way into the NHL. And the 4th line has been fantastic. It's him, AJ Greer, and Adam Ruzicka. Really, all 3 of them are probably my players to watch aside from Jacob Markstrom. But the 3 of them together just have this fantastic chemistry where they're going both ends of the ice. And it's refreshing after seasons of a weighted down 4th line by 33-year-olds and just players that probably shouldn't have been playing on the 4th line anymore.
Fair enough. And for the Flames fans, I'm going to throw out Will Cooley. He is a rookie for the Rangers. Got up for 4 games last year, but I think that was just to kind of get him a taste of NHL action. Former 3rd-round pick, and definitely has some upside. If nothing else, he's going to be somebody that goes out there and throws his weight around. And as we were talking about earlier, Jess, this is the kind of game where there could be some nastiness. There could be some physicality. There could be some carryover from all the bad blood last season. And I just get the feeling if that does happen, you might see Will Cooley sticking his nose right into the middle of all that.
Yeah. If that does happen, other than Kadri, I would say that AJ Greer is probably your other guy that's going to be in the thick of things. I can't remember if he got into fights in Boston. He wasn't really with the club that long, but since he's come over, he's been one of the few Flames players that's not afraid to throw his weight around, which, again, nice to see. It's a nice, refreshing change.
Absolutely. And is there anything going on, any storyline that's developing right now with the Flames that you can point to that's kind of been like either good or bad that's kind of surprised you thus far out of the gates? And I know it's still early, but anything that kind of jumps off the page as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, Noah Hanifin had apparently told the team earlier in the summer that he wanted to be traded. He wasn't interested in re-signing. And then Saturday night, Elliot Friedman says, hey, there's some talks. Things are getting done. And he met with the media today. And Noah Hanifin he's not really a front-facing player, I feel like. So for him to talk with the media and kind of smirk and, kind of allude that an extension's getting done, it's nice because he is such a strong player for the team. He's a top pairing defenseman with Rasmus Andersson. So to have him on the penalty kill and power play, and obviously 5-on-5, just having him there is going to be more beneficial than him leaving.
Yeah, for sure. And for the Rangers, I got to throw out just the idea that they've actually kept their lines intact for a handful of games this season. Because, like, Jargalant the first year, I thought he was reasonable with it. And then last year, he got, like, really trigger happy when it came to shuffling the deck and just moving guys up and down and left and right and all over the place. While I'm talking about that, which do you prefer? Do you like a coach that will kind of stick with the same lines through? I mean, eventually you're going to have to make some adjustments, right. But do you like a coach that, sticks with the same lines for the most part, or do you like kind of mixing it up and getting everybody used to playing with everybody? Because there's two schools of thought there, but I do like the consistency usually.
Yeah. I mean, I personally prefer the consistency just because, again, if it's not broke, we don't need to fix it. I get that, sometimes you are going to have to just adjust and shift players around. Stuff happens. That's fine. But I would much rather things stay consistent, because if there is one thing that this Flames team needs, it is consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. And I figure we can close on this. It's a ton of fun, obviously, doing this crossover episode here. And maybe we can do a little bit later in the season. They play at MSG in February. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, any predictions for this game? Do you want to throw out like a final score, or anybody to put one in the net for the Flames, or anything off the wall that you just want to toss out there?
I think it'll be 3-2 Flames, and it's going to be another overtime game.
I also have this game going into overtime, but I'm going to say the Rangers win it 3-2 in overtime. It just feels like, again, everything that happened last year, all the chaos, all the physicality and the fireworks and the come from behind wins for both teams.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's destined to get to overtime. And, the Raiders, on top of that, they haven't played an overtime game this year in the regular season or in the preseason. So, I mean, they're just due for one. But, if I got to at least, you say it's going to go into overtime. So who gets the game winner for Calgary then?
Oh, God. Let's Mackenzie Weegar. He's been he's had an uptick in his offensive production, and it's nice to see him shoot the puck. And what about for the Rangers?
I was going to say Adam Fox, but that last thing you said there about shooting the puck, it kind of reminds me of Artemi Panarin, because he's been shooting the puck a lot more often this year. And I think that's Laviolette and the coaching staff, trying to get him to do that. And, scoring some goals. He had 2 goals in the most recent game, so he's feeling it right now. I'll say Artemi Panarin in overtime for the Rangers.
I mean, I wouldn't hate to see it. I think that he deserves something. I think that he suffered enough last year.
Yeah, he had a tough time last season in the playoffs, and I don't think anybody felt worse about it than he did. So it is nice to see Ranger fans still having his back this season, and him getting off to a hot start for the team for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but like I said, this is a ton of fun. We'll bring Nick next time. We'll do another crossover when the Rangers play the Flames, or I mean, who knows? They might strike a trade next month, or you never know what can happen. So we'll definitely do this again. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me and taking the time to talk with me. I greatly appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you. And Ranger fans and Flames fans, thank you guys as always for tuning in, and we will see you next time.